In 2013, Karnataka enacted a law which makes it mandatory to spend public money to uplift scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. It is only the second state in the country to do this. Now, this is different from other allocations that the government has for the SCs and STs because these subplans make it mandatory for the state to spend 24.1% of its total budget for the welfare of these communities. And this year alone, Chief Minister Bharath Joshi has set aside 28,234 crores under this law. But this law, which should guarantee spending dedicated to the welfare and upliftment, is being misused. No surprises there, and these funds are being diverted. And there's a catch here. This is made possible because of a loophole seemingly written into the law. What is this loophole? I'm Bharath and I'm going to decode this for you. In each budget, the union as well as the state, funds are allocated for the welfare of the SCST communities. The subplan in Karnataka is meant to set aside funds in proportion to the SC and ST population. Take a look at the objectives of the subplan. Funds are non-divertible. The funds must be spent on schemes directly benefiting the SCs and STs. In Karnataka, under the subplans, 17.15% of the total budget allocation is set aside for SCs and 6.95% for STs. These subplans, each department prepares one, are approved by a state-level council headed by the Chief Minister. So here is an example of how subplan funds are put to use. The flagship Jal Jeevan mission being implemented by the RDPR department aims to provide tap water connections to every rural household. This fiscal, the project will utilize 3,000 crore under the subplans, which authorities say is justified as drinking water will be provided to SC/ST households as well. Next, there was the elevated corridor project in Bengaluru. 250 crore from the SC/ST subplans was allocated to be spent on the 102-kilometer long elevated corridor project by the Public Works Department. Eventually, the elevated corridor could not be implemented, but the diversion of the subplan funds was justified. This justification was made possible because of the loophole written into the law, Section 7D. Section 7D of the Act says, in respect of non-divisible infrastructure works, a portion of the scheme cost, as may be determined by the government, shall be deemed to have been provided for the scheduled caste and tribal subplans respectively. Here's what you need to pay attention to. The words non-divisible infrastructure, a portion of the scheme or project cost, and deemed. Let's go back to our elevated corridor example. An elevated corridor is non-divisible. A part of it can't be earmarked for the specific upliftment or welfare of the SCST community. But the government tried to push through using its justification that even Dalits and tribals will use the flyovers. Therefore, the money is deemed to have been spent on SCST welfare. Next, a portion. What portion of the subplan funds? The lack of a defined value has led to diversion of funds. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the law makes it mandatory for this allocation to be spent. But many departments, like the law department, that do not have welfare or infrastructure projects to spend on, find themselves in a bind. These departments take shelter under Section 7D and spend the money on general projects whose money is deemed to have been spent on SCST development. Failure to spend the funds invites disciplinary action, including imprisonment of up to 6 months against any functionary or official being a public servant for willful neglect in implementing the law, and for this, the law has come to be dreaded. Over the years, questions have been raised on the way the law is being implemented. Lawmakers across party lines, including those from the ruling BJP, are angry that the SCST subplan funds are being diverted for infrastructure works. Earlier, the Higher Education Department used subplans money to give laptops to SCST college students. We also saw schemes devised to help SCST entrepreneurs. A proper plan for departments on how they should spend the 24.1% of their budget on SCSTs can be a start. Joshi, the finance minister, who is looking to woo the Dalits and tribals in the election year, has an opportunity to fix the flaws in this pioneering law.